Well, let's get abreast of what has been happening across the country, and we start from here. The Inspector General of Police, James Opon-Buenu, is rejecting claims the army was released to intimidate voters at some polling stations within the affected constituencies, stressing members of the military and the operational units of the Ghana Police Service were only deployed for backup in emergency situations. Now, this is in sharp contrast to videos circulating on social media with uniformed men shooting at a police station. Mr. Opon-Buenu has been addressing journalists in Accra.
Polling stations and the collation centers, mobile patrols, rapid response teams, and reserved teams. The core election duty, ladies and gentlemen, was at the polling stations and the collation centers, where personnel of the various security agencies were deployed, other than the military. The officers and men of the Ghana Armed Forces, together with the various operational units of the Ghana Police Service and the Ghana Immigration Service, were deployed for backup and emergency situations. And I emphasize that they were deployed for backup and emergency situations. The military, as well as the operational units of the Ghana Police Service, were not involved in the duties at the polling stations themselves, but were called in under rapid response and in emergency situations only. The impression being created that the military was used at the polling stations is therefore not correct. I wish to assure all our abiding Ghanaians that appropriate security measures have been put in place to guarantee their security and their safety in accordance with our constitutional mandate. We will continue to maintain law and order during the post-election period to ensure that people go about their normal activities without intimidation and attacks. Let me sound a note of caution to any person or group of persons who intend to foment trouble to desist from such acts, because we will deal decisively with such people in line with the laws of our country. Ghana is a peaceful country governed by the rule of law, and we ensure that all actions that go contrary to that will be effectively dealt with.
On a related note, the Electoral Commission has rebuffed the opposition National Democratic Congress claims the votes obtained by President-elect Nana Akufo-Addo were inflated in the Ashanti region. The Commission has also denied reports of stuffed ballot boxes. In an exclusive interview with Joy News, Ohiming Teria, Ashanti Regional Director of the Electoral Commission, Benjamin Banobio, dismissed the claim.
At every level of the elections, at the polling stations, we have all the political party agents there. At the close of the election, ballot papers are counted. The ballot papers that has been cast are counted in the open, and they are counted audibly for everyone there to know. And when they finish counting, they fill or complete polling station resource forms. And these forms are signed by both our officials and then the party agent. And then copies are given to each party agent present. These documents become the primary source for declaring any election at any level. So when we come to the coalition center, we have representatives of political parties there. Then we collate these polling station results together. Every constituency does that. And there too we have the agents there. After collation forms are filled, and then the summary results are also completed. Both documents are signed by officials and then the polling agents. During collation, because they also have the same document which we are using to collate, If there are any anomaly, parties raise it up and then we trash it up before they move on. You come to the regional coalition officers level. What I did as a regional coalition officer is to collate the results so announced at each of the 47 constituencies, of which copies has already been given to the political parties, and they were here with me. Any results that come in, I announce it to them, and everybody gets satisfied before I even add it onto my coalition sheet. So with this transparent and verifiable processes, there's no way anybody can do anything to affect the results.
On that same beat, a group calling itself the Liberation Movement of Fomena is demanding the dismissal of the New Patriotic Party's chairman for the Fomena constituency, Akwesi Anti-Asamoah. Now, the demand, according to the group, is a condition for the Member of Parliament-elect Andre Siama Amoako, who won the constituency as an independent candidate, to align with the NPP in Parliament. Now, Nana Yaojima bumped into the MP-elect at Akrokeri, where he polled a majority of votes and filed this report.
The Liberation Movement of Fomena has accused constituency chairman Akwesi Anti-Asamoah of championing a divisive front ahead of the general election. The MP-elect contested as an independent candidate after refusing to contest in the NPP primary. When the next parliament is convened, Andrew Esiama Amoako will have to choose to align with either the NPP or NDC as both parties struggle to form a parliamentary majority. After the election of lawyer Andrew Esiama as an independent member of parliament, this is the first time he has been to his stronghold, Akrokeri, and as you can see, he has been welcomed massively by the people. He wouldn't want to speak with us, but I'll try and squeeze some few words from him. He's pleading with us. We've tried he said, why aren't you speaking to us?
For a very good reason. Let me reserve my comments.
So when do we get you to speak to us?
At a good time, don't worry.
All right. So that is lawyer Andrew Esiama. We met him accidentally, or we bumped into him. Constituents who voted the MP spoke to Love News.
We voted him due to his good works. All we want is to get the development we deserve.
He's very trustworthy and has delivered. He didn't neglect us in his first term.
He is very humble and accessible. He deserves another term.
Now, which party Andrew Esiama Amoako aligns with in Parliament has become relevant since none of the two parties can claim absolute majority. The Liberation Movement of Fomena played a key role in the re-election of the MP. Here are their thoughts.
His blood is NPP, so he should align to their side. We need him to align with NPP so he can get us development.
You were just trying to do it so that we can liberate Fomena MPP from some certain people. Yeah. So as we speak now, I can tell you that those they call themselves the executives, I can tell you that most of them, they didn't vote for Nana Akufo-Addo. I can tell you that. They didn't vote for Nana Akufo-Addo because they were not campaigning for him.
Honorable Andrew Samuel Kwensiama no no mom na osoma na yen na ye wo Fomena mpesua so yetie nu na nye obi fufuro
o ma ne ye wa ha no kwasi ntim ne na sefo no na na kan ye hye because that T-shirt we
want the party chairman removed. The party chairman, Kwesi Inti, and the executives were the problem. There were those who sucked us, but we have been resolute.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Nana Ojima reporting.
Well, government is rejecting predictions that the reduction in its seats in Parliament will significantly affect its efficiency and governance. Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, who addressed the press Thursday evening, argued that both the majority and minority caucuses in Parliament agree on most issues brought to the House, and thus the loss of the seats will not impede government business.
If you have a Parliament in which the majority has about 138 or 139, by the time the seats we are challenging, 139, 140 are done. It's not the same as having 169, 106. And the president, I think in his address yesterday, was quite clear that the people of Ghana have sent a message to the two leading political parties that there's a need to work together. That means that a lot more middle ground has to be found on the various things that government intends to do. There are other jurisdictions in which you find the executive in the hands of one party and the legislature in the hands of another party, and even they find common ground to do business. Because, mind you, at the end of the day, we are supposed to be in this business in the interest of the people of Ghana. So if the executive is committed, the majority is committed, we believe that the minority will also, or ought also to be committed to doing business that helps to push the republic forward. Indeed, in Parliament, for those of you who cover Parliament, a lot of the times, 90% of the times, we don't disagree on matters. Business comes to the House, is referred to committees, committee reports come, they are approved. Rarely, one or two issues, then you would find that there's a major debate or a split, and then maybe you have a walkout or something. But if you list the business of the House, you find that it's on rare matters that there's division. And the message is clear that even on those rare matters, we need to work towards some compromise. So, yes, it ought not to be business as usual. I think we can all be clear in saying that. It ought not to be business as usual, but we look forward to working together as we've done in times past, but with a lot more compromise to achieve what's in the best interest of the Republic.
Let's talk health now. And the Ghana Health Service says it is enhancing its surveillance to deal with possible surges in COVID-19 cases post the 2020 general elections. It says it is learning from best practices employed in other countries that organized elections during this pandemic. Now, speaking at a news conference on Thursday, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje, disclosed that the service will re-engineer its risk communication strategy to whip up compliance with safety protocols.
We are going to observe more keenly. The slightest sign is picked up. We also know where there are potential points where there were large jubilations, where there were queuing, among other things. And so the district there will enhance surveillance to ensure that anybody who reports any similar condition are quickly picked up and identified. And of course, we intensify our testing in such areas at the least sign that we find. So those are the areas we are talking about. But the most important thing is that if people abide by the protocols now, we will be able to minimize whatever possible surge we have. We have a chart of many countries that had an increase in their COVID situation after election. But there are also many other countries who were able to contain and actually brought it down. Korea is one of the examples, and we are trying to adapt the same mechanism that we are doing. But fortunately, the way the election itself was conducted actually reduced the risk of spread. There were fewer queues, a significant number had masks, at least the ones I visited and those I saw on television. Of course, there were some who were not wearing masks, but we are hoping that this will not be a spike, but we are enhancing surveillance to be able to quickly identify and contain.
Well, it's a wrap for the news. Of course, the newspaper review will come your way shortly. Do stay with us as we take a brief break. Well, welcome aboard the newspaper review segment on the show. It's another morning, and we have Mamavi Owusu Aboagye.
Yes, back. Yeah. Good to see you too.
With all your bling bling this morning. Yeah, you're blinging. The earrings and the glasses and the new hairstyle and Charlie. I say elections and Ajo.
Well, thanks for holding it down yesterday.
Yeah, and I missed you though. Being on your feet the whole show isn't.
Girl had to sleep a little longer, you know. Yeah, but we're back, and time for us to do the newspapers. We've got a couple of them in the studio. I've got the Daily Graphic, the Daily Dispatch, this is Republic Press. I can't help but say the Republic Press, Daily Heritage, and the Ghanaian Observer.
For my end, the Finder, Daily Guide, Ghanaian Times, Punch, and Daily Statesman.
Okay, shall we start with the Daily Graphic?
Let's
see what's on the front page of the Graphic today. President appoints transition team. There are people asking questions if it's the same governments, why the transition? But if you look at the statement that was issued by the communications director at the presidency, he quotes some laws, and based on that's where this is coming from. But there are people asking lots more questions. Also, 111 MPs out of next parliament. That's a lot of parliamentarians who won't go back to the 8th parliament. Election violence under investigation, according to the Election Security Task Force. So here's James Opong-Buenu, the IGP, making that statement. But the banner headline, EC declaration precise, according to Codeo, a vote tabulation system employed by the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers to measure the accuracy of the 2020 presidential election results has backed the official presidential results declared by the Electoral Commission. So while Codeo's parallel vote tabulation methodology estimated that President Akufo-Addo would secure 50.98% of the total votes cast, the EC's official results stood at 51.302%. In the case of former President John Dramani Mahama, the PVT estimated 46.66%, with the EC's official results standing at 47.359%. Codeo's PVT methodology also estimated rejected ballots of 2.25%, which closely matched with the EC's figure of 2.23%.
The EC has come through with some correction on.
Yeah, so that's reflected. That's reflected in the figures that the Daily Graphic is quoting this morning. All right, let's check out the center spread. Brothers to sit either side of aisle, and this is the Jenapo
brothers.
John and Samuel.
But both of them are Abu.
Or Abdullah and Abu. One is Abdullah and one is Abu. So there's a spotlight on the two brothers. Story written by my big brother, Samuel Doe Ablo Depper, in the center spread of the Daily.
Okay.
Okay, also government business resumes, according to Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah. He says that President Akufo-Addo and his appointees have returned to work in full throttle a day after the declaration of the results of the December 7 presidential poll. And he says that this is to enable them to work with dispatch and wrap up government business for the year. And then the big one, I guess, you're probably waking up to the news that the NDC has officially rejected the results, described outcome as flawed, discredited. Now, this particular story was picked up from Haruna Idrisu's press conference. But yesterday, the former president, the candidate of the NDC, the flag bearer of the NDC, spoke himself. We will be filling you in on some of the things that he's been saying, but essentially backing what has been said already through the other officials of the party. Officially, they are not accepting the results. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, Climate Smart Cocoa program initiated, and COVID-19 victims to commemorate first year of pandemic. That's an alliance of NGOs known as BHEC Africa. They've organized a candlelight memorial reception in remembrance of the people who have succumbed to the COVID-19 pandemic, and to also mark the first year of the pandemic. The rest of the story in the Daily Graphic on the back page.
Let's do the Finder newspaper now. And Nanado names 15-member transition team. Now, one of those on that transitional team is Yao Osafo Mafo, Senior Minister. And I only bring it up because there's been a bit of a trend where some supposed members of the party are saying, so, Nana, are you still going with Yao Osafo Mafo? I'm not the one saying it. Some alleged party members are saying that. Well, let's see how it goes. He's on the transitional team. The U.S. Ambassador, Madam Sullivan, has been congratulating President Akufo-Addo on his re-election. All incidents of violence at polling stations being investigated. That's according to the IGP. EU mission condemns NCA's issuance of license to media owned or linked to politicians. And Ghana's active coronavirus cases stand at 892. And ECOWAS in there as well. So let me just take a brief, not a swipe, but a stab at two of the stories. Now, the EU's mission has condemned the NCA's issuance of licenses to media owned or linked to politicians. It has bemoaned the licensing by the National Communications Authority of commercial radio stations owned by politicians or linked to political parties, saying the act contradicts international standards. Now, according to the European Union, EOM, observer mission, that is, this can compromise the independence of the media through politicized contents used for campaigning. But I think, as of now, we're pretty much into it, Mama V. Now, according to them, in a preliminary post-election statement, the EU EOM observers identified at least 33 NPP-affiliated and 28 NDC-affiliated and 5 PPP-affiliated radio stations currently on air. So quite an issue. We keep talking about it. And look, I know come next year, more are going to spring up. Not that I actually have my foot on something. And I know many more are going to spring up from different quarters. The other one I wanted to do has to do with, again, the EU Observer Mission. 2020 election successful but dotted with trouble. And addressing a press conference organized yesterday to give a preliminary assessment of the just ended polls, the EU team leader stated that the EU observers had found that voting was well conducted with party agents present at polling stations and the counting was transparent. However, they noted there were isolated violent incidents during voting and campaigning. You can get more details of those stories on page 12 of the newspaper. Finally, over 40% of women in politics suffer verbal violence. And that is one that, should time allow, I shall get into. That's on page 5 of the Finder newspaper. All
right, let's do the Daily Dispatch now. Front page of the Dispatch says, Okoye is my favorite Speaker of Parliament. That's according to NDC's Inusa Fuseni. And they picked this from an interview that he granted me on our series, The Exits, which essentially is targeting members of Parliament who aren't going back to the 7th Parliament. Inusa Fuseni was the first person that I engaged, and we talked about many things, his work, beginning of, when he first entered Parliament, the people he saw, how things have changed. And then I asked about his favorite speaker, because he's worked under, I think, about 3 or so, or 4, maybe 3. And then he picked Professor Michael Okoye as his favorite, and he gave reasons for that.
Right.
It gives him the opportunity to share his views on the floor, and that's what's important. If you're in Parliament and you don't contribute to matters, then have you come or you have gone. So
saying this brings to mind quite a number of them. Peter Alajete, Bamford Addo.
Yes,
quite a number of them.
Yeah, I think he worked under Bamford Addo. Did he work under Alajete? I'm not sure, but Doa Jaho
that would be in the Kufuor term.
Yeah, so I think he did 3 or 4. I have to go back to that.
We'll have to check on that.
Yeah. So the Daily Dispatch picking that and appropriately attributing it to myjoyonline.com. Here's another one. NDC's claim that president using military to overturn results false. That's according to Defense Minister Dominic Nitiru. EC on parliamentary seats. Number of seats won by political parties. It's essentially a recap of what has gone on. So they've got that of the parliamentary and the presidential results. And that's captured on the front page of the paper. On the back page, Akufo-Addo, Mahama and the 16 region voting patterns. So more analysis in the paper today. But if you go to page 11, where they've got the full Inus Afuseni story, they also have this one that says the Member of Parliament for Asin Central constituency, Kennedy Agyapong, has expressed shock about the outcome of the 2020 presidential results of the National Democratic Congress. And according to him, with the developmental projects which have been executed by a Akufo-Addo-led government, he thought the NDC was going to lose the December 7 polls miserably, and miserably is in quotes. It is why he describes the NDC as smart, considering their political strategy. So there's a lot more to that. And then also MPP will have a tough time in Parliament, says Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu. And he's been talking about how things would be a bit difficult. He says the 7th Parliament of the 4th Republican MP, 7th Parliament, it is sad and unfortunate that some of the party's best knowledgeable and experienced legislators are not returning to the House. So more of that in the Daily Dispatch newspaper today. Ben?
Well, the Ghanaian Times says presidential election result credible. That's according to CODEO. And pictured there, Sheikh Arameyao Shaibu, acting chairman of CODEO. We reject presidential election, NDC insists. NMC commends media for election coverage. Now, if you get into the pages a bit, we're talking about incidents in Tamale yesterday. On page 3, irate GUM agents invade church, destroy property. And at least 300 irate agents of the Ghana Union Movement on Wednesday vandalized property of the party's flag bearer at his Life Assembly Worship Center Church at Odoko in Accra over non-payment of allowances. Then there's this one, 32 Ododo electoral violence suspects expected in court today. So that's a story I'll be getting into. But did you see that video when His Excellency the President, I think in the run-up to the election, was, a little rally there. He was addressing party faithful, and he raised the hand of Neil Ante-Bannerman and said, and this is the candidate, vote for him. And his name, Neil Ante-Bannerboy. You know what I found so funny about it? The minute he said Neil Ante-Bannerboy, Neil Ante-Bannerman looked at it.
Almost like...
And he got the correction. I said, yeah.
Mr. President,
and someone had to prompt him that, my guy. African countries to receive COVID-19 vaccines early 2021. That's on page 5 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. That's it for the Ghanaian Times.
Okay, all right, let's do Republic Press. Republic Press newspaper. And on the front page, Mahama rejects results as Akufo-Addo starts work. It says the National Democratic Congress flag bearer John Mahama has refused to accept President Akufo-Addo's election victory. He described the election results announced by the Electoral Commission as, quotes, fictionalized, unquote. Here's another quote. I stand before you tonight unwilling to accept the fictionalized result of a flawed election, unquote. Mr. Mahama said at a press conference, what we witnessed across the country from Monday, 7 December 2020 exposed a deliberate plan to manipulate and predetermine the results of the election in favor of the incumbent candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo. So more of what he had to say in the paper today, but it's also got the correction that the EC had to make. After the declaration of the result, there was a statement issued. That's on page 4, a bit of that. It says the Electoral Commission has corrected the total valid votes put out during the declaration of results on December 9. The chairperson, Jean Mensah, declared the presidential candidate of the NPP as the president-elect based on a total of 13,433,573 valid votes instead of 13,119,460. But the statement also went on to say that even with the new figures, it wouldn't change the percentage. So that's what is here in the paper. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission inadvertently used, so just going back to how she used the wrong figures in the statement putting out what is supposed to be the right figures. This does not change the percentages stated for each candidate and the declaration made by the chairperson.
It still raises questions, though, about mathematical accuracy, because this could have turned anyway. And imagine if it had had any impact, what that would have meant in terms of even trust in the institution. So to get it mathematically wrong, I mean, I took my time when I started hearing of this and worked it out. And then I saw some reports coming through corroborating what I was thinking and all of that. And I realized, that's quite a serious one coming from the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to say about this also goes back to the deadline that the Electoral Commission gave itself, the 24-hour deadline to declare the result, and how it couldn't meet it, and how Jane Mensah had to come back midnight to apologize and explain the reasons. I kind of felt like, you kind of put yourself in some tight corner that nobody forced you there. You put yourself there.
Historically, in the Fourth Republic, no one has been forced to meet any timelines. So why box yourself into that situation?
And listen, Charlie, this one, the election, it's a huge matter, and we've seen it play out. So you've got to be absolutely sure with what you're doing, especially at that level. Other people could afford to make some mistakes, but not at that level. Because what do you want people to see? You want people to be convinced about what you have done. And the last thing you want to do is to quote the wrong figures when you've written it. It was a statement that she was reading, and then come back the following day and issue a statement. The inconsistencies, not good. Not good. This is a presidential election. There's a lot at stake. And when you do this, you give people room to question what you have done. And I really, really do hope and pray that all the lessons are being learned here. This is no joke. It's the whole country, whole country listening to you and watching you. And nobody's forcing you to come out at that particular time to come and do a declaration. So if you're not ready, don't do it.
I think the enormity of the situation, sometimes it gets lost on some people. And I think maybe with all the back and forth, there was a feeling, a need. And if you listen to the EC's chair, you realize that at some point, because that was a lengthy declaration, at a point it was beginning to get the points being made about the successes chalked and all of that. But it's really not about the EC chair. It's not about the deputies. It's not even about just the institution. It is about all of Ghana. And we're all at stake. So any little, mistake there could bode ill. But thankfully, at least we've had successful elections. CODEO, supporting that. The EU Observer Mission coming out with its own observations. But I think some of these little bits we can learn from.
So one last story in the Republic Press. It's picked on page 3, as in details of that story is on page 3. But this is the headlines on the front page. It says Peace Council team lashed at NDC headquarters. I'm just going to skip and go to the specifics where there is a quotes. So this is the National Peace Council chairperson who is talking. And there's a quote: "We were met with serious hostilities and violence at the NDC headquarters. As I speak now, board members who were part of the delegation are psychologically traumatized." This is Reverend Edu Jemfi speaking. He said their purpose for being at the headquarters was to sit with the party leadership to discuss the allegations of election malpractices made by the NDC and to find a way to peacefully resolve the differences for the sake of the country. The board were, however, able to meet the leaders of the National Democratic Congress after the incident who were rather cooperative. Unfortunately, the group march could not be discussed as members of the board were traumatized by the incident and will need ample time to regain composure before any discussions can proceed. Listen, sometimes little people such as us can give pieces of advice. In this period, the last thing you want to do is to hold a meeting with any leader of the NDC in their headquarters. Seriously. Plan the meeting elsewhere. It was a bad idea to go there.
I don't know what they were thinking, honestly.
Last thing you do.
Especially when...
That's home for their supporters, isn't it? And especially when you know that they haven't been happy about the result.
No,
you don't go there.
That is and not even just the result, even certain members of the group you represent. There have been, claims in the past about some of them, whatever, being this or that. So you might want to just give them time to, nurse their wounds, if you like, to lick their wounds and to calm down a bit. But to rush into this, well, I feel it was a bit of a rush, and maybe the tongue lashing they got might serve some purpose. But the Daily Statesman this morning, interesting one. Amewu begins construction of state-of-the-art palace at Wuli.
Yeah, I saw that.
Talk about hitting the ground running. In 2024...
He hasn't forgotten how he got there.
In 2024, I'm going to be looking out for Hoho. I'm going to be looking at what candidate the NDC will field. Yeah. I'm going to be looking at what gains Peter Amewu makes. And I'm going to be looking at the margins to find out whether there have been any gains, whether the MPP can hold that seat. Okay. I mean, it's an interesting one for me, and I'll be watching that constituency. Government satisfied with margin of victory in Monday's polls. This one, 7 got me laughing like a killer. Because, about the 10, I'm sorry for me, about the 10 percentage points that were spoken of, we're going to beat the NDC by 10 percentage points. I guess some of these show you that, Charlie, what our votes, Jainabu. Be joke matter. I mean, I liked the fact that when Nanado spoke while he was accepting the results declared by the EC, he sounded very conciliatory. So did Kojo Nkrumah. I just realized, wow, our politics. Now we're talking about working together in government business. It's good. It's good for Ghana.
I beg, when the thing is in your
favor, good for Ghana.
What else? How else?
It's good for Ghana. But so the MPP has grabbed 137 seats, at least per what the EC has been telling us. 137. That means if you add the Fomena seat to them and the Fomena MP,
Fomena is not part of them.
Fomena, I mean, when I say add to them, I mean officially in Parliament. He's going to have to be either with the MPP or the NDC. He has to choose one side. He can't be.
No, but what's the fact
today? He's going to align.
What's the fact today? The fact today is that he's not even a member of Parliament. The fact today is that the MPP.
He is a member of Parliament elect. Member of Parliament elect. So that is that. With the NDC having 136 now, Senate West is yet to be decided. So that's another one there. That's it with the Daily Statesman.
All right, let's jump into the Daily Heritage newspaper. On the front page, it says, our parliamentary majority intact, according to the NDC, comes with a picture of its General Secretary, General Mosquito Johnson Asiedu Nketia. Also, MPP faces tough time in Parliament, says Osei Mensa Bonsu. Misuse of state resources evident at 2020 elections, according to the EU observers. And that story is here. Okay, we'll continue. Okay, so it says the European Union Election Observation Mission has noted that the misuse of state resources and unregulated campaign financing resulted in an unlevel playing field in Ghana's electoral process. The EU, in a preliminary statement on Ghana's December 7 presidential parliamentary elections, also mentioned that the polls were organized in an efficient and transparent manner and voters participated freely. Later this morning, we will jump into what our own SHRAJ, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, has also said about the December 7 elections. Final one, Namomo takes Kromo seat from Fisheries Minister. That's also, yeah. I like the fact that it's one woman going and another woman coming in. That's
those coastal constituencies. Those along the coast. You joke with them. They will joke with your tenure. Maybe to wrap up, so you're done with your stack of papers then?
Yes.
Okay, so let me wrap up on these now. When you go to Punch, that story you started, MPP will have a tough time in Parliament, Osei Mensa Bonsu. He cites, according to him, it is sad and unfortunate that some of the party's best knowledgeable and experienced legislators are not returning to the House. And that's his point, basically, that the knowledge they've gained over time, the experience, all of that. Now you're going to have to build a different core, group of people who will have to fit in. Of course, Parliament has its own mechanisms when new members of Parliament come in to ensure that they are trained in the work of government. But this one, I wanted to send home a message. Whether you're on the losing side or on the winning side, you need to know how to conduct yourself. NPP victory, fan dead, another's arm severed from over-jubilation. And the story says, over-jubilation arising from the declaration of Nana Dankwa as president, one person has been left dead with another's arm severed. The incident, which occurred at Obuasi Bosman in the Obuasi East District of the Ashanti region, was that of a tipper truck colliding with a motorbike. So let's all be on the lookout. The Daily Guide this morning, new faces in Parliament. You can check out the details there. Stephen Amwa, MPP in Shiaso. What's the name of that institution again?
Maslock?
Maslock. Rita Odolesowa in Dadekotopong, among others. You can check out the details in the Daily Guide newspaper. Let's do maybe one or two more stories. I wanted to do the one to do with women, so let's hear from you first.
Okay, so two things from the Daily Graphic, page 13. One says the National Election Security Task Force has said all the violent incidents recorded during this year's elections are being investigated. It said the outcome of the investigations would be duly brought to the notice of the public. Chairman of the task force, Inspector General Police James Opombuenu, at a media briefing at the Joint Operations Center at the CID headquarters in Accra yesterday, said despite all the measures put in place and the education of the public, some violent incidents involving many civilians were recorded. It must be emphasized, he said, and here's a quote, that the conduct of this year's elections was not devoid of some violent incident which nearly marred the smooth conduct of the elections. This resulted in 5 deaths and injuries to 17 people. 5 deaths, injuries to 17 people, including security officers. So, you know, there's a lot more to that. I think what we haven't generally been happy about, that incident in Techiman where we saw the military. And that's has to be thoroughly investigated, and you know,
incidents which led Colonel Festus Abuaje, when I spoke to him yesterday, to describe it as the worst election we've had since '92. I felt it was maybe a bit harsh, but he goes on to justify, saying that we've never had an election with people dying and getting to this point. So if you have 5 people dying, 17 injured, then
that's a lot.
According to him, from the security standpoint, that's disastrous.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And you know, he launched his book right before the elections, and one of the things he was saying was the involvement of the military in the polls. He had always mentioned that. I think it's consistent with what he said before the polls. So yeah, that incident, I mean, it takes the beauty away from it. There's also 111 MPs out of the next parliament. A total of 111 members of the 7th parliament will not return to the Legislative House for the 8th parliament in January next year. You see, it is not a secure job. Comes back to the people. So, okay, so I guess you continue with the women still in parliament?
So over 40% of women in politics suffer verbal abuse. I'll just do that very quickly so we can go online. Now, that's on page 5 of the Finder newspaper. It says about 46.2% of women in politics suffer verbal abuse as compared to the male counterparts. A research report by the Gender Center for Empowering Development, a civil society organization, stated. It also indicates that another 26.3% goes through psychological abuse. That's according to Mr. Henry Nikwao, communications officer of the GenStet, stating in Accra at the launch of the report. And look, when we have 46.2% of women in politics suffering verbal abuse, 26.3% going through psychological abuse, can we blame them sometimes when they don't offer themselves for, you know, such positions? I mean, if you make it a very, what's the word, unfriendly environment for women, how does that, I was just reading yesterday, I've forgotten who was saying it, but the person was talking about how crucial it is to involve women in governance, in leadership. I mean, but I guess we still have a long way to go here in Ghana. But by and by, I think we're getting there. It's just that the gains are not being made as much as I would want. Look at the numbers in Parliament. If you look at the last Parliament and this one, pretty much.
The women is the same.
Pretty much
38, 38.
Nothing has changed. Really.
In the 2016 election, we got 37, but you know there was a by-election that got Seyram
Lydia Al-Hassan
in Parliament, making the number 38.
In fact, now if you consider it, if it weren't for, I mean, I don't mean to sound inconsiderate here. If it weren't for the Mfansaman situation, it would mean that we would have less if it weren't for Mrs. Hayford replacing her husband.
Then we would have had two men. So if the NPP had won, if the NDC had won, it would still be a man. That's what you mean. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a caution in the Daily Graphic. This is coming from Dr. Kuma Abuaji, Ghana Health Service Director. He says post-election celebrations, Christmas can cause COVID-19 spike. He also mentioned schools reopening in January, as well as activities that will characterize the Yuletide celebrations, such as commercial and social activities and people traveling across the country as another risk factor for an increase in the disease. I guess we've got a big task ahead of us. And now that the elections, well, for now, are over, we probably would have to concentrate on drumming home the message of COVID is still with us. Whatever you do, you have to be measured. The NDC says that they will not accept a fictionalized election, that the election exposed a deliberate plan to rig. And so they're going to use all legitimate means to fight this. We're not sure if this would lead if this would lead to, you know, a petition like we saw in 2012, but the law is clear now. We know they have to do that if they're going to go to court with a petition. It has to be within 21 days after declaration. The declaration was when again? Ben?
So I think it
was 2 days ago.
9th. The 9th.
The 9th. And today is
the 11th.
The 11th. Okay, so 2 days into the 21 days already. So we wait to see what they announce in the coming hours. I guess a lot will also unfold today because that press conference addressed by the flag bearer of the party was just last night. Right. So we will be digging into some of the matters again. With the revised, because a lot has happened since 2012. We know that it's going to be the person who says I should have won the election or I won against the person who was declared. So no third parties, if you like we saw in 2012. It won't be, if you like, John Mahama and others. No. There's, Akufo-Addo and others. So we wait to see how, things unfold in the coming hours. Do we have a bit of time to take our viewers?
I don't know about online, but what I'm going to do is just let you mention the Twitter trends for today.
Okay.
Now, Supreme Court, interestingly, is trending at number 7. In Scam We Trust is, trending at number 6. Then
in Scam
We Trust.
SCAM.
Yes.
Okay.
Like 419. Don't ask me.
I'm not getting mischievous. I just wanted
to check out the trends.
I just wanted to get the spelling.
But it is In Scam We Trust. Number 3 is #Mahama Do the Right Thing. Number 2 is Tamale, which was on fire a bit yesterday. And number 1 is Trump. Well, it's a wrap for the news review. Sports is up next with Oreku Ampofo. Thank you very much for doing this with me, Mamavi.
Have you turned like politician overnight? Like it's a new Benjamin Akapo I'm seeing this morning.
It's the political...
Or maybe I should go to Parliament.
You should, actually.
Okay, so like...
Should I give you a constituency?
Introduce me again. Like I just came on the show.
So this morning, we have the privilege of, having to sit with us, discourse on pertinent matters, legislator Mamavi Owusu Abuaji. And she's going to be telling us about her plans in terms of winning the seat in her constituency again.
Well, thank you for having me. Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Stay with us.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM Sports with me, Oreku Ampofo. We do start off with some local stories where Asante Kotoko has told the Ghana Football Association that they are by law at liberty to relocate to the Aliu Mahama Sports Stadium or any venue of their choice since their traditional home ground, Baba Yara Sports Stadium, is under rehabilitation. Now, the record Ghana League champions in a letter to the football governing body said a move away from the Accra Sports Stadium will decongest the venue and avoid a clash of fixtures due to the number of teams using the facility as their home venue.
The GFA's letter to Kotoko on December 2 asked the club to provide reasons why they want to relocate to the Ali Muhammad Sports Stadium. The letter also asked the Porcupines to make available ownership agreement between them and the National Sports Authority to help the football governing body make an informed decision about their request. Kotoko said they only requested to relocate their home venue to a facility that has been approved by the GFA through the club licensing board, deriving its powers from Article 46 of the GFA statutes and required to work in accordance with the relevant provisions enshrined in the GFA club licensing regulations. Kotoko said the GFA approved the Ali Muhammad Sports Stadium as their alternative venue for the 2020-21 Champions League, following their request for a license to participate in the CAF Champions League, which was duly approved. In relation to the ownership agreement as requested by the GFA, the club added that to request for an ownership agreement at a stage of our expression of interest to relocate to the Ali Muhammad Stadium would be a great deviation from the licensing process. They said the decision to move to the Ali Muhammad Stadium is purely for sporting reasons. Moving to the Ali Muhammad Stadium, they say, would give us a bigger leverage in terms of competition to reduce congestion at the Accra Sports Stadium. The GFA had said the club licensing board did not raise concerns about the number of clubs competing at the Accra Sports Stadium. However, Kotoko insists the licensing board must not raise concerns before they decide on which facility they want to relocate their home venue to. It appears Kotoko is dissatisfied with the decision of playing most of their matches at 6 p.m. In their letter to the FA explaining why they need a permission to relocate to the Ali Muhammad Stadium, Kotoko said playing their home matches at 6 p.m. because of the live coverage of matches by Star Times does not help the GFA to manage the days on match days. They said the fixture scheduling so far sees us playing our home matches at 6 p.m. because of live coverage of our home matches by Star Times. This certainly is because the GFA needs to manage the days on match days, but it goes seriously against us. It is for this reason that we humbly request to move to a facility that has no Premier League presence. This would be spreading the love of the game across the country and accomplishing the GFA's agenda of bringing back the love. The record Ghana Premier League champions reiterated their decision to return to the Baba Yara Sports Stadium should rehabilitation works is concluded. Since work is currently ongoing on the facility, they are by law at liberty to choose a venue of their choice.
Still on Asante Kotoko, and their chief executive officer of the club, Nana Yaw Amponsah, has called on the players to give their all to have their names written in gold in the annals of the club when they do play for Africa. But the Porcupine Warriors were declared winners of their CAF Champions League preliminary round second leg tie against Nouadhibou of Mauritania without kicking a ball after they failed to field a team for the return encounter at the Accra Sports Stadium due to COVID-19 cases. Now, the Kotoko CEO has no doubt the team will excel in Africa with the right attitude from the players.
We thank God for this achievement. It's no mean feat. We went to Mauritania, we all know what happened there. And God being so good, we come to our own home, a lot of frustrations, but all of you have kept your cool, you've been calm, you've been resolute, and we have come through this hurdle. What is ahead is even more difficult, but with God, all things are possible. So we are going to do, I said it in Mauritania, we're going to do something in Champions League this season that will amaze a lot of people. We're going to do something that hasn't been seen for a very long time. And I want all of you to be committed to that task so that your names will be written in gold. Put it at the back of your mind that so long as you remain in this family, you do your best for this family so that you will be remembered tomorrow.
From football, let's move to some boxing, where Kabik Promotions Chief Executive Officer Ivan Bruce Cudjoe has put together what he calls a rumble of a fight night slated for Boxing Day. That's on December 26. The night is an opportunity for Ghanaian welterweight fighter Patrick Alote to make a return to the ring for the first time since serving a 6-month ban for physically assaulting a football fan at the Accra Sports Stadium early this year. Ivan called on the boxing community to make a night a success, as you know, it is indeed a big opportunity to bring awareness and to push the sport boxing in Ghana.
Ghana's world title hopeful Patrick Alote will lock horns with Victor Skemevo in the 10-round welterweight bout at the Idrowitz Event Center in Dansoman, Accra. The Ghanaian boxer is eager to redeem himself after serving a 6-month ban. Alote is confident of victory, but his opponent Kemevo will make things tough for him come December 26.
Alote, I know Alote not today, but he doesn't know me. I've been watching his fights. He's good. I know him. I'm praying someday I'll meet him. I will say that my prayer comes true. And this is the place I respect Alote. In the ring, I don't think that respect will come. So he should watch out.
Boxing Night Rumble is being put together by Kabik Promotion and Box Office Promotion. Ivan Bruce Kujo is Chief Executive Officer of Kabik.
I believe this kind of pairing may go a long way if we all put our head together and decide to do the right thing. I wouldn't talk much, but on the 26th of December, this very place will witness its maiden boxing event. And due to this COVID, it's something that we wouldn't allow a lot of people to come in. We'll just be restricted to some few because we have to observe the COVID protocols. So I would really want to say, do bear with us when people are forcing to come in and we limiting them from coming in. Because due to this pandemic, we have to be very, very cautious of it.
Well, thanks for staying with us here on the AM show. A lot has happened since the Electoral Commission chairperson, Madam Jean Mensah, declared the 2020 presidential results, which you all know went in favor of the NPP's candidate and president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. There's been a lot happening after that. During the newspaper review, we've mentioned how the Peace Council board members are narrating an attack at the NDC's headquarters. There are a lot of unhappy people because, you know, like it or not, elections in Ghana since 1992 has been between two major political parties. One party is not happy. And yesterday we heard from former President John Dramani Mahama, the NDC's flag bearer, and their candidates going into the 2020 election say that they will not accept what they term a flawed election. We would want to talk on the back of that, the things that have happened, the police also confirming the violence in this election, saying that 5 persons have died, some 17 persons have been injured, and they're going on with their investigations. We will engage the West Africa Program Director for Conciliation Resources, Madam Janet Adama Mohammed. That's in a little bit. Stay with us. We'll take a little breather. We will come back with the conversation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. fellow Ghanaians, my brothers and sisters. Allow me to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to you for your tremendous support, which you expressed overwhelmingly and convincingly at the polls. There's no doubt that Ghanaians from every region of this great nation of ours voted for change. And we did so in both the presidential and parliamentary elections. I'm a staunch believer in the experiment of democracy, the system of governance that allows the ultimate decision-making power to rest in the hands of you, the good people of Ghana. We, the people, who with an eye towards the future we would like for our dear country, elect representatives to go forward and realize that vision. Government serves at the choice, direction, and pleasure of the people of this great nation. And I have had the honor and privilege to serve my country in all levels of government. When in 2016, at the end of my first full term as president, I ran for re-election as an incumbent, I respected the will of the people. I conceded, I stepped aside, and I set in motion a peaceful transfer of power because I understood that it was the will of the people. And if we are to progress as a nation, if we are to live up to the inheritance of our history, one for which people have paid the ultimate price, the sacred verdict of the people must be respected. It must be protected. It has been my pledge throughout my time of service as a representative to the good people of Ghana to do exactly that. And that is why I stand before you tonight, unwilling to accept the fictionalized results of a flawed election. My brothers and sisters, it is important to remember that the government that is in power controls all of the state resources and oversees all of the state's institutions. The line he treads between his loyalty to the power that is held by the people and by his own desire to hold on to power can be a very thin one indeed. We went into the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections with assurances from the Electoral Commission and the relevant state actors that it will be conducted in an atmosphere free from fear and that it will be fair, transparent, and credible. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. What we witnessed across the country from Monday, 7th December 2020, exposed a deliberate plan to manipulate and predetermine the results of the election in favor of the incumbent candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo, who, as so happens, controls all of the state resources and oversees the state institutions. Despite all of the ruling party's inducements, use of monetary enticements, and other such schemes on a scale never before seen in the history of this country, the good people of this country understood what was at stake, and it was clear as the results of the votes that were legally cast that the National Democratic Congress won the presidential and parliamentary elections. No amount of trickery, sleight of hand, or obfuscation will erase that reality. I'm extremely proud of our...
So you had the former President John Dramani Mahama. Now let's have our conversation on the back of this. Madam Janet Adama Mohammed is the West Africa Program Director for Conciliation Resources. She joins us via Zoom for this conversation. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Mama V. It's good seeing you again.
Yes, absolutely. So what's your interpretation, or how would you describe where we are with this statement by the former president and candidate of the NDC in this election?
First of all, let me say that Ghana has the capacity to produce credible, free and fair, violence-free elections. And I think that we should acknowledge that we have that capacity. We should be up and doing the right thing. Ghana has the capacity to also have state institutions that can perform to ensure that this happens. Technology has advanced, and we have made use of the advancement of technology to improve our systems to a point. It is only when we refuse to use our capacity appropriately that we find ourselves in situations that we are in today. There are currently a number of currently tensions all over, and we have to reflect and look at what is causing these tensions, what is actually leading to the tensions that we have now.
Okay. So the fact that the NDC's position is clear, now we know that they disagree with the results of the polls. The former president has indicated that they would use all legitimate means in resolving this. How should we move on? I mean, can we even move on from where we are?
Like I said, let's first of all look at what led to this. I look at the role of the EC as an important institution in delivering credible results. Now, as you said earlier on the program, the EC indicated that they would be able to deliver the results in 24 hours. Even in the West, this is quite challenging. And I wonder what led to that. Again, she used that to raise the expectations of the citizenry and also the political parties. Two, we have often used dialogue as a means of getting the results to be accepted. Ghana has always done this. Before results are declared, you have to go and talk to the people and ensure that they have accepted the results in a way before you even declare. I wonder what preparations were made. I hear the Peace Council went to the NDC headquarters, and like you said before, that was not the right approach. However, there should have been some eminent missions that would lead some dialogue processes and ensure that some of these tensions are not there. Again, when there are perceptions in any tension situation, in any conflict situation, you have to listen to them. Before the declaration, certain people were already raising questions. Whether these questions were authentic or not, they are cause for verification. And so these are areas that were also left out and not looked at. The incorrect figures presented by the EC, however little they are, created doubts in the minds of citizenry and also the political parties. And I'm sure both parties will agree to that, that it created some level of doubts. And so were the sources of some of the tensions that we have. We are hearing that there were no military presence in these elections. However, some videos show that there was military presence. Precedents with around the registration of the election, the registration period also indicate that there were military presence. So it raised the expectations of citizens, and so different perceptions will be formed around the role of the military in the elections. And so you cannot just make a statement and say, no, the military was not used. You have to find ways of creating safe space to dialogue and ensure that people actually believe and trust in the systems and processes that you have put in place. But currently, people's minds have been abused, people's minds have been distorted, and so it raises a lot of contention in the elections.
Okay, before Ben comes into this matter, I guess you've set the tone. You've gone to some of the underlying issues, and we're clear in our minds the things that have happened and why we are here, perhaps. So I want to ask you the question again. Do we go to the court to resolve all these issues that we've raised? Because we've heard the famous statement, really, if you're dissatisfied with the result of an election like this one, you go to court. Do we wait for the court to settle all these matters that you raise?
Yeah. Mama V, I think you know me for a long time now, and you know that my option would have been to go through a dialogue process. But Ghana has missed that opportunity of using a dialogue process to achieve this. The NDC has come out officially now to say that they would not accept and they would use other means. And I guess, and I believe and trust that they are going to use legal means and not any other means. So, yes, if our law courts are prepared, then the NDC should go through the law courts to resolve the issue. In the meantime, I will call on the Peace Council not to give up. I have a problem with the way that the Peace Council process went on, in the sense that the Peace Council governing board was inaugurated just a few weeks ago. My question is, how prepared are they to handle an issue like this? It is important that an institution like this should be given some focus so that they can be able to take up the task when it happens. We all know that elections come with a very huge task on the Peace Council, and the Peace Council itself was not given adequate attention to enable them to prepare to take up a task like this. And so I will call on other civil society organizations that have the capacity to support the Peace Council at this stage, that there is still the need for them to go around and create safe spaces for dialogue that will reduce the tensions whilst the legal process is going on.
Now, Madam Adama, Benjamin here, I'd like to find out, you spoke about some dialogue, processes of dialogue that could have been brought to bear. And I'm just wondering, what else could have been done in this stead, apart from the legal processes and apart from engagement from the Peace Council? What dialogue processes specifically are you speaking of? Is it the two parties that should have found a way of jaw-jawing? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. We have the inter-party committees, and I know that the EC and the security agencies were working with the inter-party committees. But I wonder the level of preparation that the inter-party committee were prepared. We normally have the inter-party committee at the national level, at the regional level, and at the district level. Now, I wonder what work has gone into working with these committees at all levels to ensure that there would be some clear acceptance of results at all levels. I don't think that this process was laid out clearly, and I don't think that it created space for any formal dialogue. When the declaration of results were delayed, I was also expecting that was the time for some level of dialogue to be going on, even though there were representatives of both parties, of all parties at the EC. It was important for some group of people to be talking to the different parties and ensure that there will be acceptance of results at the end. But this dialogue process was not, I think that they didn't look at this dialogue process, and so we have reached where we are today. Right. And yet still, I would say that it is still important for Ghana to still go on a dialogue process. We are a people who believe in join. We believe that we can speak out our minds and we can understand each other. And so it is important that we put in a process that would enable this. I know us came around just before the elections, going around to talk to the political parties in different places with the National Peace Council. That was done. But that is often like a workshop. It is not like talking to the people. We have precedents where before elections were declared, you go to the political parties, go and talk to them and ensure that they would accept the results, and that if there are issues, they would raise them to be resolved. I don't think that was really done.
Right. Now, we have a new Peace Council chair, just because you brought that up, Dr. Ernest Edudjemfi. And would it have been more apt to have someone who has been at this, dealt with the parties, election without number? I'm talking about the former Peace Council chair, Professor Emmanuel Asante. Looking at the bit about the inexperience of the new council, would it have been better for the former chair maybe to have been allowed to proceed with some sort of engagement with the two major political parties, the NPP and the NDC, at a time like this? I'm
wondering if that would have worked because of the issues that I have heard and observed about the previous board, the previous chair, whether he would be accepted by all parties. But there were other members of the National Peace Council who could have supported this process as well. So it is not just the board, the chairman of the National Peace Council. There are other people who could have. My issue is that when you inaugurate the Peace Council, you should give them some capacity building. You should give them some level of orientation and prepare them, introduce them to the political parties, because that is key. Introduce them to the how do you call them? The chiefs. Introduce them to various institutions and ensure that they are accepted as the prominent voice that can influence. But when you don't do that and you just do an inauguration, it doesn't work like that. In the past, we've seen how Cardinal Appiah-Texan, the then Cardinal Appiah-Texan, did work with prominence and his team, and the late Mulvey Wahab Adam and the rest. They worked tirelessly to ensure that elections were understood, the processes were understood and accepted by various parties. Now what we are seeing is the Peace Council has become more, not strong enough. And that is my worry, because it is a very important institution and we should strengthen it. We should give it all the support to ensure that it functions well for all of us.
Well, maybe my final bit to you for this batch of questions. How do we make our elections? How do you feel we can make our elections more transparent and less susceptible to the challenge of, or even rejection of results like we're seeing this time around? It isn't the first time we've come to these crossroads. How do you feel we can get there?
I think we should put in enough capacity at the regional district levels, the coalition centers, and also put in a lot of dialogue processes at that level to ensure that figures that are accepted at that level are accepted by all. I'm an old person, and for that matter, I will always agree with the scoreboard that time back, we used to all look up to the scoreboard to see figures in the district. And these figures were then collated at the regional level and the national level. And I think that we can still do that. We now have a digital process where we can do it even better. That figures are collated on a scoreboard that everyone has contributed to. I think the media houses also have failed us. And let me also say that Joy News, Joy FM or Joy as a media house, I was really not happy that you didn't do what you used to do. In the previous elections, you did so well, and I really respect your company. I respect you as an efficient media house. But this year, I think there were some gaps, and I hope that subsequently you'll be able to do that. You used to do so much for this country. If no one has told you that, I'm saying it today, that you used to do so much for this country. But this year, that gap, your scoreboard didn't come up, and I'm not excited about it. But having said that, yes.
I was just going to say that.
Having said that,
can you just hold on for a little bit? There's something that you said, and we'll come to the media as well so that you can expand on the point that you are making. You talk about the Peace Council not being strong. I was tempted to ask what shows a strong Peace Council, but even before you answer that, let me say good morning to the Executive Secretary of the Peace Council, Mr. George Amo, who's joined us via phone for a conversation. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Mr. Amo?
Yeah.
Okay, how are you? Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
George Amo, I want to ask how you've been engaging the parties, at least the two major parties, right before the polls. What kind of engagements went on?
All right. Thank you once again, and greetings to all those who are listening to us. Before the elections on December 7th, you note that we had a peace pact that brought the key presidential candidates, i.e., the President Nana Akufo-Addo, the former President, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, to sign on to a peace pact. We did that. And before then, we had quite a good conversation with the two parties. The board met with the National Democratic Congress in their head office and also met with the New Patriotic Party in their head office. We had quite extensive consultations. Both parties put before us the issues that were of concern to them. As a peace institution, we use soft approaches in dealing with conflict matters or issues that are potential to create conflict dynamics. So when we did that, we engaged with the Electoral Commission. We met Madam Jane Mensah and her team, not only on one occasion. Prior to the election day on December 7th, we had met with them. We've had quite a number of conversations just to give what the concerns the parties are having, for them to do something about them, particularly when they are within our legal framework. So we did that.
So did you see to...
We prepared the ground enough. Before then, we've gone to over 120 constituencies we had determined or classified as hot areas to engage with the political parties at that level. So we did quite a lot of work.
Okay.
But the Peace Council, I think our work must be understood. I don't know the person who you are speaking
the
to.
The person that we're engaging is a very experienced person when it comes to issues of reconciliation or conciliation and democracy generally. But I want to ask you, the NDC has indicated that they presented a petition to the Electoral Commission before the declaration. I wonder the role that the Peace Council played. First of all, were you aware of this petition, and what did you do about it?
Well, I am not aware that there was that petition. I think when we were engaging them, I think 3 days ago, at the office of the former president, I think some of these issues were tabled, and we decided to engage with the Electoral Commission. You see, so the petition, I have not seen it, so I don't want to comment on it.
Okay.
But yes,
so let me.
We have been engaging.
Okay. So let me take you back a little, because you said you had engaged the parties and you listened to their issues. What was your interest? Was it in resolving, so that my question is, were all the issues resolved before we went into the December 7 polls?
You know, we used a lot of preventive diplomacy in times like this. Before the election, like I've told you, we met with the leadership of the National Democratic Congress. We met with the New Patriotic Party. We met with the CPP. For these three political parties, we met them. They gave us the issues that were of concern to them. As a peace institution, we are not peace. People should understand, we are not peacekeepers. We are peace builders. That is why we use soft approaches in working out issues that can lead to conflict. You know, so when we did that, we had to engage with the two key players, i.e. the electoral management body and the security, who have very, very important roles to play in ensuring peace aside of the political parties. I think we did that quite well.
Okay.
Even after the election day, on December 8th, the NPC, our board, you know, most of them are above 60 years, had to go to the office of the National Democratic Congress around 11 p.m.
Was it before the declaration or after?
No, before the declaration.
Okay.
Yes.
Why did you choose to go to the NDC's headquarters for that meeting?
Why not? We needed to engage. We needed to speak to the political parties to understand their issues, particularly when we've had news conferences here and there, which we thought had the potential to detract from the peace we are enjoying in this country.
Great. So to what extent did your meeting resolve the issues that came up, particularly with the NDC?
Yes. When we went to Mr. John Dramani Mahama's office, at the former president's office, you know, while the meeting was going on, some young guys entered the room, the meeting room, and virtually, held us in hostage. But let me commend the seniors who were there. The vice presidential candidate was there, the chairman. I think they helped us out of the place without anybody being harmed.
But you went there in peace for peace. Why did they attack you?
I will not use the word attack. I think that what happened was that some young guys entered into the meeting room and disrupted the meeting. You get it?
Mr. Amo,
so we could not efficiently conclude the meeting. You get it? We had gone there to engage with the leadership of the NDC to see how we can all help address the issues that were coming up. But that is what happened. And when things happen like this, it also creates not too good environment for peace building to take place.
Mr. Ambo, I'll sneak in this question. Benjamin here. Now, you say it doesn't create the sort of conducive environment for, peace building and all of that. But did you not see that coming? Did you not expect it? On the back of an election where supposedly the NDC was, losing out per some of the figures we had seen, didn't you feel the raw emotions, the declaration by the EC and all of that? It was not apt, as some people have said, that you go to the HQ of the NDC rather than engaging them on neutral ground. Did you not see that coming?
Thank you very much. I think I will not engage whether it was right or wrong, because if you have good intentions, you mean very well, why not? That place is not, if you've been invited, why not? You see, because we meant well. Let us see what we can also do to ensure we address the issues that are being raised. I think it was proactive method. You may not agree, but we think that it's a proactive method.
But my concern here is that as proactive as it was, it didn't work out. And it said, you are saying that you meant well. It's also said that the road to hell is paved with many good intentions. Obviously, your good intentions, amounted to nothing in this regard. So no fruit was born out of this action.
I would disagree with you, because you may not know what the effect would be.
Per you, Mr. Amo, I just want to find out, since you say there was some fruit born, what exactly would you say are the gains on the back of that meeting that we can, build on? What are the gains?
The very presence of the Peace Council there might have done something good. People were expecting the Peace Council to do something. The council, in their opinion, decided that why not? Let us approach. I agree. If some people are saying, no, you shouldn't have gone, probably that is a discussion we would take up later. We are all learning. But if you have been invited in the circumstances like this, it may have two scenarios. One, to assure the people that, yes, the Peace Council is there to help resolve matters that are coming up. It could have, the good intention may have had that in mind. Let us go and assure that we are there. You see, but probably didn't work that way. Others didn't understand it, and probably it has happened in a manner that is not helpful. But please, let us see how we can work out this matter together. I believe that we can. We've been there before. I heard Joy saying that we have been in this place before. When the Peace Pact was being signed by the two leading candidates, the Chief Justice, I remember on the 4th of December, informing them that in the event of disagreement, please let us all resort to the mechanisms we've put in place to help us resolve disputes when they occur. I expect that we use the lay down rules. We will be doing the soft part of the conflict resolution issues. We will continue to engage. What happened, we are very, very, very well-meaning people in all the political parties. We have worked with them for some time. And we believe that it will work out. But it is difficult in this time. And nobody should raise the tempest, please.
Right. Now
speaking... We have to help find solutions to the disagreements that are happening so that we build this country together.
Speaking about those difficulties, I just want to find out, because it's also been suggested that it's a little too soon after the constitution of a new peace council with a new peace council head and the inauguration and all of that, that it might have been a little too soon to start testing our National Peace Council with something as huge as an election and, you know, the responsibilities that have been placed on your shoulders. How difficult was it? Was the Peace Council ready to mediate, to step in and do this, even putting aside the peace pact that was signed by the two political parties? Were you ready for something like this so soon after your inauguration?
Yeah, I think that our board, as composed now, has 5 members who were part of the previous board. The chairman was with them.
So we can go back to you.
We have some new members who are not new in the peace field at all. You just review the profile of our members. They have been international peace actors. So they are not new. Some have been in ECOWAS to help mediate. I think that probably we could have, if we had inaugurated the board a bit earlier. I mean, why not? It would have helped a lot. I would concede to that. But these are quite experienced people. I think their profile is on our website. And I'm not sure they have done anything that is not proper. You see, let me inform you this. On the 8th of December, around 1 p.m., this board had to engage with the Electoral Commission. The engagement, one of the fruits that came out from that engagement was the press conference that was organized around that time. And you can testify, I know the majority of Ghanaians will testify that when that press conference was organized, it brought the tension down, the mountain tension a bit down in the morning. So we haven't done, help us to build. For capacity, we still need capacity. I mean, we will not, argue on that at all.
Okay, Mr. Amo, just hang in there. And let me also just mention that our resource person who's been helping us with this conversation also has more than 25 years of experience work on governance, peace and security. And in fact, 10 years ago, she received the Martin Luther King Jr. Award for Peace and Social Justice. So she's a woman of knowledge in terms of these areas. Madam Janet Adama Mohammed, in wrapping up the conversation, as we have the Executive Director of the Peace Council also on the other side listening to you, I guess you appreciate better the kind of things that they've done and where we are today with their interventions. What more can they do, listening to him?
As I said, it is the preparedness to do what they have done. And I'm not judging them to say that they did anything wrong or bad. What I'm saying is the timeliness of the board, and I'm glad that George, my brother, did concede to that. I'm also saying that some things need to be put in place now. We should not say that because of the attempt to speak to the NDC did meet some kind of challenges. So for that matter, they should stop. I think that they should go on. They should look at a composition of a team that they can use to speak to both parties. And speaking to the parties should not be done only at the national level. I think that they should speak at the regional, the district, the constituency levels. The Peace Council has the capacity to do this, to speak to them. What I'm saying is, at the national level, we have to have a strategy that is to enable peace to unfold. And they should not say that they are ever tired. Peace builders are never tired. We have to go on until we find a path to peace. It is important for us to identify that strategy now. Whether you are accepted or not accepted, you have to work your journey to the level of acceptance. Now you've gone, because of the heightened tensions, you've met this resistance. You need to find other diplomacies, other ways to get the NDC to listen to you, to get the MPP to listen to you, to get the other political parties, CPP, all of them, to listen to you so that you can create the safe space within which you can dialogue. It is very, very important for the Peace Council to do this.
Okay.
Whether they are new or not, at this particular moment, they need to work and they need to do this. And I agree that they are traumatized and they need the space to de-traumatize. And I appreciate that. However, if the immediate board has these challenges, there are other people who are of eminence and voices of reason in the country. They can use them and get people to listen to them.
So let me flip this around quickly. I'll come back to you. Yes. Ms. Amo, I hope that you're still with us and you heard that. But
it's refreshing coming from one of our key respected influencers, Madam Janet Adama. I think she's been with us. She knows about the history of the Peace Council. And I would invite her and other key persons, who we've been working with all this while, to offer us, to come close to us. I think we are ready.
Okay, great.
Are very much ready.
But I want to ask you this. I want to appreciate that, Mr. Amo. I just want to ask you, you couldn't quite complete what you went to the NDC for before the declaration. I wonder if that is still useful, especially now that they've taken the position that they will not accept the result of the election.
I can assure you the council will continue to engage. This evening we are having a meeting. And
I hope you are not going to their headquarters.
No. Sorry. We are not.
Oh, I'm sorry for that.
We are having a meeting in a particular place in Accra. And I think that we work things out. We mean well.
Yeah, but what's the objective of this one? What's the objective of this evening's meeting?
Oh, no, we are going to evaluate the elections and see what is it that we can do together with our partners to deepen consensus even in this time of disagreement. I think it is very, very important. We cannot leave this issue hanging. We have to, like Madam has said, we have to work out all that we can. All the possibilities are on the table to ensure we keep this country as peaceful as we have met it. We cannot leave this country in chaos for our children. No. So we would do all that we can. We'll go all out. We have key influencers within all the political parties, from our side as well. Dr. Tambas was here. He's been with us all this while. We will do what we can to ensure we do what is in the best interest of Mother Ghana.
Mr. Amo, a very quick one. You say you're going to evaluate the elections. When you say that, apart from the political parties, what does that mean? Is there going to be any representation from the Electoral Commission, for example? Because whatever evaluation may need their expertise.
Mr.
Amo, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm asking, are you referring to the meeting this evening?
Yes.
Oh, we have somebody from the EC who is part of this meeting.
Who is coming?
Well, you want me to give out the name?
Well, we could know who is representing the side of the Electoral Commission.
Even the Electoral Commission is going to be represented. And we are going to have other key institutions. OneNet will be there, and NCC will be there. IDEC is expected to be there as well.
Right.
Well, Ms. Amo, we'll pick up the conversation from tomorrow. So all the best with this evening's engagements. But
thank you, and I would want to appeal to you. Let us be sensitive in this time that we are. Whatever word that you pronounce on your medium, please let us wait and see whether it has anything to help deepen the peace of this country. We have to do all that we can to keep this country together in these times.
Absolutely, sir. That's exactly what we've been doing. Thank you so much for your time. Auntie Jenna, just a final one. What do we do with the NDC supporters? We've seen them go to the Electoral Commission head office. We've seen them go to their own offices. We've seen them come out in Tamale. How should they be handled?
I hope that the NDC supporters will stay calm and listen to their leader. The leader says they would take legal means, so they should just wait on their leaders and work with their leaders to go through the legal process that they have decided to use. I think that it is not necessary to go violent and go the violent way, because that would not solve the problem. We have seen how war has been so destructive of countries, of their democracies. We know that during times of war, we weaken all our institutions, we give up our rights, and we lose our dear ones. So I will appeal to NDC supporters not to use violent means. They should go through the due process. The Constitution of Ghana is there for all of us. We have various processes that we can set up and follow, and we would get clarity to everything. So I encourage everyone on either side not to use violence. It's not just the NDC, but both sides should use the appropriate and due process to ensure that we get to the stage where we both agree that this is the way forward. It is about creating the future for all of us as a country, and violence does not create a future. It just depletes the future. So we should look out for that.
Okay. Well, Auntie Jenna, a very big thank you for being a part of our show this morning, which has been absolutely useful. I guess in the coming days, we'll still come back to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning on the show.
Thanks, Mama V and Benjamin. It's been nice being with you. Bye.
Great. Okay, we have to move on, Ben.
Well, maybe just a few tidbits that, in fact, we're going to be sharing as well. Something that Samson Lade Anyenene on his show, The Law, together with Dr. Basit Aziz Bamba shared. We started talking about them in the course of the news review. So once the Electoral Commission publishes election results, any citizen of Ghana can raise an election petition within 21 days, challenging the validity of the president-elect. That's the first thing to know. Then the court may limit the number of days for hearing. Parties may be given 2 days each for cross-examination, after which the court adjourns 15 days to give its verdict. It is possible, through the exercise of case management powers of the court, to cut a lot of the delays. Now, note that the 21-day timeline to file a presidential petition is to enable the petitioner to adequately consider the matter before deciding to take the radical step of challenging an election of a president. If there is a change of mindset and judicial attitude, we should be able to hear an election petition within 42 days. Ghana has enough legal tools to expedite the trial of the presidential petition. So there are quite a number of things to take stock of, but the Supreme Court cannot amend as well the 21 days for a Ghanaian to raise the election petition. So these are some of the dynamics to consider when it comes to whether or not the NDC will proceed to court and what the dynamics are. And like I intimated earlier, a citizen can raise the election petition. Well, this is how far we've come as far as this discourse is concerned. More coming your way.
Yes, and there's more right now because there's a statement from the Christian Council that I thought we will share a little bit of it with you. You're asking that, you celebrate in moderation. Do not wear political party paraphernalia to church on Sunday. Today's Friday. On Sunday, people will go to church. So let me go to the paragraph that speaks specifically to the issue. The Christian Council of Ghana wished to state that for the sake of peace, unity, and national cohesion, Christians should not put on political party paraphernalia to church on Sunday. We encourage pastors to use the coming Sunday to thank God for peaceful elections and to preach unity among the Ghanaian people. Let us continue to pray for a united, prosperous country. So they acknowledge that there is some tension in the system. And so if your party won and you've been celebrating, please do it in moderation. And if you're going to church on Sunday, please, the elections are over. So leave the tools at home and go to church in whatever colors that you want.
You should tell that to the people in my neighborhood. Some of the celebrants have not allowed anybody in the neighborhood to sleep for quite a while. It's been interesting. Well, in the excitement, in the jubilation and everything. But moderation is key at
Absolutely.
a time like this.
All right, we've got plenty more conversations to come. We'll engage IDEC. They were there, and that's the Christian Council of Ghana statement showing there on your screen. We will engage IDEC. They were at the center of this peace pact that was signed, but there are other governance issues to also discuss. And then we'll have a conversation on Parliament's new entrants. There are some new faces, as some 111 members will not be going back. So more of what is to come in the 8th Parliament here on the show. Stay with us. Okay, so thank you so much for staying with us here on the AM show. We're still talking about peace. We're still talking the aftermath of the declaration of the 2020 presidential results. We're still talking about the position of the NDC not to accept the results. Let's speak to the Executive Director of IDEC, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, whose outfit was very instrumental in this peace pact that was signed on the 4th of December before the December 7 polls. He's joined us. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Hello, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete. A very good morning to you, if you can hear me.
Thank you. I hear you.
Okay, great. There you are. So just going back to the peace pact that was signed, where the two key leaders of the main political parties pledged to commit themselves to support a peaceful elections in the December 2020 general elections, to undertake to accept the results of the elections, undertake to restrain their supporters from resorting to violence in the aftermath of the elections, and then committed to the judicial resolution of all disputes. So with this in mind, with where we are with the process today, what do you, first of all, what do you make of how things have unfolded?
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Mama, this your question is difficult. I don't understand. Can you break it down, how things have unfolded? You mean my expectations of the outcome of the elections before they took place, or where we are now?
Okay, so let me break it down. Let's even go back to let's go back to the day of elections and the issues that have come up. And I want to make reference, because we're not saying anything that's not on record. So the election task force, the IGP spoke yesterday, and he did indicate that 5 persons died and 17 persons have been injured all through this process of election 2020. The NDC has decided not to accept the outcome of the election. So what's your views on these developments?
Well, elections outcomes are difficult to determine ab initio. Speculation and some kind of projections will be made, but ultimately the voters speak. And sometimes what their wishes are or what their decisions are only seen after the event. So in the place we are now, I think we've had, this probably is one of the closest elections we've had, if you're looking at the situation in Parliament and the margins for the presidential. And we anticipated this. The essence of the Peace Pact is to remind our leaders that in a democracy, you may not like outcomes, and there will be politics is full of breaking rules and doing things that shouldn't be done. It's not 100% neat and clean and so on. But the way to go is to go to court to resolve those. You might concede to elections, not because you feel that, everything was fairly done, but sometimes the calculation is that resorting to violence will be too high a cost and might be destructive, might affect many more people. The leader sometimes puts all other considerations over and above their personal ones, and that's what we've seen of our leaders. So in this situation where the two parties are contesting the results of the presidency and then the parliament, and now we're told that one had 37, that's MPP, NDC 136, and there's one and one more to be counted or decided. This is the situation we are facing. Those who have grievances, in the case of the NDC, where it feels strongly that something untoward had happened, I think that we've had instances where cases have gone to parliament and they've been resolved, or parliamentary, both for parliament and presidential. In the parliamentary situation, we've seen sometimes results, the elections has to be, there has to be new elections, or those who are legitimate, winners are the ones who are given the seat. So it's not very difficult for the courts to determine parliamentary cases on the face of the facts and the evidence. And that is often done. So if there are contentious issues or they feel, any of the sides feel unfairly treated, I think they should go to court. With the evidence, the court would administer that, the justice that is required.
Great.
With the case of the presidency, it's often difficult. In fact, there aren't many cases where the results declared by the Electoral Commission are reversed by courts. 4 years ago in 2017, Kenya attempted that. And it was such a classic. Everybody thought, look, for the first time, we are seeing a determination to do what is right. And they criticized the electoral process, the counting, the quality of the whole process, and they said, no, this thing has to be rerun. Unfortunately, the directives that the Supreme Court gave were not followed through by the IEBC. That's the name of the Kenyan Electoral Commission, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And instead of, when they were not doing what was required, I'm not a lawyer, but I understand that when the court gives directives and there are problems with implementation or interpretation, you go back to the court for further directions, maybe further and clearer directions. Raila Odinga didn't do that. He rather decided to boycott the whole thing and to call his people on the streets. And so the second vote took place, and then the Supreme Court confirmed the outcome of that vote. That was. Now, so you do have that situation, but by and large, presidential elections, once declared, are not, rejected by the Supreme Court or overturned. This is because, in most cases, it's not because everything that was done was fair, but we've also found out that, or learned that the Supreme Court takes a whole lot of factors. One is stability, political stability. The Nigerian election last year, 2019, it was challenged in court on the weight of the evidence, but the court still said, well, the results stand. We've seen our case in 2012. They are not the same. The NPP felt very strongly. It had evidence and so on. 9 months, thorough work was done and so on. The Supreme Court came to a conclusion. The party leader said he did not accept the result, but respected it and conceded, and we went forward, although his members were vehemently opposed. We also have an instance where, especially in the second term, when you're trying your second term of office, like in 2004, the NDC found itself in a similar situation where it complained that both for the presidential and the parliamentary, they felt the EC at that time, Dr. Farijan, had not been fair or was, had done a deal or something, treated them unfairly by siding with the MPP in government at the time. So they went to court. I think Rojo, Metronudo and others. But what saved the situation was that the late President Mills did not pursue it. And he was the key person who should have gone into the dock to to make his case and answer or challenge what the EC had done. But he decided to move on. And indeed, it became one of the major sources of conflict with the late president, father of their party, and the Fourth Republic. So we have different instances here. What I think we are in here now is a different situation. We've never had it so close, okay, in terms of the closeness of the presidential elections and the parliamentary, where, Parliament could slip into the hands of the opposition if everything is looked at. And there are contentions. I would urge that the party seriously considers going to court on both if they want. But there is also a fourth or a third approach that has emerged. In the case of Kenya, after Raila Odinga clearly lost because the second round he didn't contest it any seriously, he decided to mobilize his troops on the streets. And as it happened in 2007, this time the citizens did not respond. Why? Because they said that Kenya's devolution of resources and administrative power, financial and administrative resources to the counties, like their regions, had brought about quite some significant change in the economy. People had jobs, certain services were being provided, and they felt they had to go to work, or they were content with what they were. They were not looking at the bigger picture. So some progress in devolution diffused the enthusiasm his supporters had to step forward. Then Raila decided to wage a certain campaign because he was determined that this time around he was not giving in. With a lot of pressure from the African Union and also amongst Kenyans and other international statesmen, Raila and the current president, Kenyatta, had to talk. And apparently they knew each other very well. They've grown up, it's two families in their political context and so on. But they ended up with a deal. What some said was that to appease Raila or diffuse whatever it was, some costs of campaigns and so on had to be paid. So this is the Kenyan way of resolving presidential election controversy or conflict. They had to settle some of their campaign costs. And then Raila was elevated. There was a program on which they are working together now, which is that they are strengthening national cohesion, rebuilding the Kenyan nation, which was a separate program. And really, that is what Kenyatta and Odinga had focused on in the last 2 years. And I think 2020, 2019, I can't remember. Yeah, 2017, the last 3 years. And it's Kenyatta's last term of office. But this project has even created a split within his party, where his vice president, who wants to succeed him, Ruto, has been sidelined, and there's a lot of fighting and violence and attacks. There's a huge fight going on within Kenyatta's party because of the statesman-like approach he has taken, that the Kenyan nation was too polarized, and he needed to bring it together, and he couldn't do that except with the opposition leader. So there are different ways in which, in democratic practice, some conversation would have to go on. Okay. There are losses, huge losses. Of course, when you have power, you pay debt, you have power to make decisions and implement your policies and all that. Yeah. And so it's not an easy thing where you feel that you've been unfairly treated. But violence is not an option, seriously, because it doesn't solve the problem.
Dr. Akwete, we'll come to the issue of the violence. Just before my colleague Ben comes in, though, it's good that you brought the African perspective to this conversation. You're a very experienced governance person. You know our system very well. Which one of these would you say would be helpful to our situation right now?
I honestly think NDC must go to court. The precedents are clear. In 2004, they went to court, even if the case didn't go through. But it gave, in fact, their contribution to our Fourth Republican democracy is immense. It is out of that court case in 2004 that the Elections Adjudication Manual came up. And that manual, which is revised every election, actually scrutinized the EC in 2012 and brought some administrative and regulatory changes. And the pink sheets over which they are fighting came through that. If they hadn't gone to court and pushed it, probably the pink sheet issue would not have arisen. But the Supreme Court decision, whoever filed the writ and then decided that pink sheets for transparency have to be shared and so on. NDC says they have all the pink sheets to make their case. That sounds like they have the solid basis to go to court for the determination to be made on both. So for me, that is the first principle, but the first part, where the Supreme Court would decide, but it's litigation, and litigation does not only always suit, because it's a winner and a loser, and sometimes it can polarize. The Kenyan example that I proved is one that seeks reconciliation, especially when your numbers are not strong. I don't think whoever wins has strong numbers to govern the country and do what they like. It looks like the electorate has spoken. They want some kind of different way of winner takes all, majority overrides minority kind of government, which we've had. The margins are so little in Parliament, frankly, and there are major things that you can't do if you don't have the opposition support. And the president doesn't really have some huge thing, although that is a different matter. Once you win, you have everything. Right. So I think that the court process for me is first, or the NDC decides that, look, we would not go to court, but they would engage. The president himself has to engage in a way that resolves, and really justice must be sought. I believe they should go to court, but it should not exclude other ways of also engaging to see what really did the voters say and what changes how would they serve them. Mamavi, the last thing I'll say is this. In our history in the Fourth Republic, it looks like the trend is not changing. The voters would always give a party after the first term a second term. So we've not seen one-term presidency. MPP tried to give NDC under the late President Mills and subsequently President Mahama a one-term. They were so determined, but they were not successful. And that is where we are. 2012 is what we are witnessing in 2016. But if you look at it in the context of in the general context, the trend since 1992, it may be the voters changing their mind, but this time, whatever has happened has left us in some dreadlock or deadlock. Do you see? So you could tell that it's probably a repetition of the trend. Mm-hmm. But the margins are so tiny that probably one-term presidency and party in governance is something nearer. But for this one, there's a controversy. And if the two leaders committed to go to court, if they wouldn't concede, then they should use the judicial process. I believe they have to do that. It's a matter of integrity. And for the investigations to be done thoroughly with their evidence. Who knows what the Supreme Court might decide?
Dr. Akwete, if you can hear me, Benjamin here. Now, I'd like to just find out, speaking about those slim margins, and as one who has vast experience when it comes to governance-related matters, how do you think this is going to impact our democracy, especially considering that in Parliament, we just might have a very slim majority, a majority that could just be one, seat. How is that going to impact the dynamics of our democracy, do you foresee?
Well, democracy is a construction. Okay, it's human beings who shape it and so on. And in crisis, leaders have always found other means, and the lawyers will come and design and craft the law and put up a mechanism and all that. What I see as going is that, well, you might have a split parliament, equal numbers. I hear Senate has not been declared, and there's some controversy. But you could have that, or you could have one leading, or two, or whatever. In that situation, the president would find it difficult to push a whole lot of agenda through. In a parliamentary system, this is when coalitions are formed. You don't have the numbers. So you have to get the other side on board to govern. And what they usually say is that they do not call for new elections, but they tell you that the voters, the electorate has spoken. and they interpret what the electorate says. So I find it significant that this time there's some kind of interpretation of where the heartbeat of the electorate is. And they'll say, okay, so how do we interpret that and how do we work? I think that some co-governance will be required. It's not simply a matter of saying, oh, on everything, NDC supporters. It might, if they are in the minority, it's the NDC to decide they want to do that. Otherwise, the way forward in this kind of situation will be that they would agree on a program of work. For example, there are things in NDC manifesto and MPP manifestos that converge. You pull all those things on which there's convergence and say, we agree here. There's consensus that has to be done. How are we going to do it? So NDC, for instance, just giving an example, or if it's the other way around too, would not necessarily take on ministerial positions. Of course, the president can offer that, and it's up to a party. In fact, the president cannot appoint an NDC person individually to say, because of this, I'm appointing you to be this minister or that. It has to be a negotiation and dialogue with the party for them to agree. So there has to be some agreement on the work program, on how they are going to go forward, and so that Parliament could get things done. But at the same time, NDC would, or the party that is disadvantaged in this case, would also have to make sure that some of these programs and some of these areas, constituencies and so on, also benefit immensely from programs. It's always negotiated, and you can't always predict the outcome, but it's a human thing, and they can find a common ground. The fact is that we need to find a common ground. The violence is not an option. It will only be destructive. Both parties have contributed immensely to building our democracy. And actually, at the moment as I speak, Ghana's democracy is seen as the democracy that is also helping manage democracy in Africa. There are serious setbacks. Did you see the recent Tanzanian election? Have we seen La Côte d'Ivoire? Did we see Guinea, Mali, and so on? And even look at the role Ghana played in getting the Malians to resolve their conflict. The AU, the ECOWAS could not push it so hard. Ghana went in, and then, and so on. So there's a lot at stake that cannot be destroyed through violence. I don't think even violence will succeed, but I think that MPP and NDC, they both have a lot to offer if only they will find the basis to engage and decide that, given the peculiarity of the situation, we have 4 years ahead, there will be another opportunity. And so let's see how we work. Let's just be guided by the assumed electorate's will or wish, and work around it and move the country forward. After all, 2012, we saw what happened. 2016, the electorate decided. Who says the electorate will not make that decision? Because they would reflect on the consequences of what they had decided now. That is, if we get all the facts and it's true, then they would know what to do the next time.
Right. Now, from where you sit, especially as this democracy, all that we're doing now, electing representatives, be it on the presidential level, parliamentary level, feeds into our governance structures. What more do you feel we can do to ensure the credibility of our elections, to ensure that we don't keep coming to this point where electoral results are rejected by political parties? We saw the first one, 2012. And now, some 8 years later, we're back at the same point. What more do you feel can be done in our electoral process? Because, look, you're looking at the fact that President Mahama came, he brought in a chairperson. Now, this party came, the MPP came, took out that chairperson, brought its own chairperson. Of course, the chair people represent the country, but they also create certain impressions in the minds of people. How do we tackle some of these matters to ensure that when the electoral results are declared, you don't have people questioning them like we're becoming accustomed to now?
Questioning would always happen. It's a competition. Sometimes it's not always fair. People don't always play 100% by the rules. There's cheating. There is buying votes, money. I mean, we've gotten to the point that there is no shame and no consequence for buying votes. The law says it's wrong. And nothing is enforced in our elections. There's a lot of abuse of incumbency by these two parties. Now, these two parties have governed us for the last 28 years. The competitive nature of election outcomes reflects their power. We call them duopolies, two monopolies. There's no regulation of the parties, by the way, in any serious sense. If the regulation that was put there in 1992 was meant to control one party and give an edge to the other, it ceased to be in 2008. After 8 years, it changed. And by 2008, we are seeing equal power. And the brutality of it is that there is no state entity that calls them to order. The EC cannot do all the things that we find disturbing about the parties. It cannot even ensure financial accountability. Dr. Farijan has talked about this and said there's a need for a new framework. And there is the need for a state entity. The state is bigger than these two parties, but they behave as if they are the state. And in the 28 years, every institution of governance, every public service, this commission, that commission, they have not seen to strengthening them. Okay, so there is the need for some reforms. Fortunately, these two parties, for the first time in our history of the Fourth Republic, have put constitutional amendments in their manifestos. And these are constitutional amendments if you take the MPPs and the NDCs. In fact, what the electorate has decided now, the outcomes we have seen, whatever untoward went on with determining who won, none of them can amend the Constitution without the support of the other. So, and that is the truth. You need either a referendum, which is even more challenging than amend. That is if it's entrenched. Okay, 40% turnout and 75% or so voting yes. How do you get that? And you saw how when the two parties last year disagreed on some of the elements of the process, the referendum couldn't take place. It's even going to be worse now because of the powers in the House. Now, when you go to those elements that can be amended by Parliament, you need 2/3 of majority of the total membership. How do you get that? Now that in 2019, just look at this year, and this MPP had majority, significant. But now, one or what? What are they going to do? So I think the electorate has spoken. There are reforms that are needed. We have to deal with the vigilante threat because the laws are not being enforced. The police is not able to enforce any law when it comes to our politics and political violence or whatever. The president committed himself to eradicate it. It will take constitutional reform and some autonomy from the police, bigger autonomy than they have now. And you have to change the Constitution. Most of these proposals we're talking about already under the CRC and the CRIC. They went on a whole lot of reforms of institutions, but there was disagreement between the two parties and they couldn't move. In the same way, you see this MPP 2431, the election of chief executives, but also the president's ambition to reform the party system and open up local government. He says devolution and parties must get involved and strengthen the multi-party democracy. Again, he couldn't move because NDC. So if you touch any of them, you need the support of the other. And just amending just 55.3 or 243, you're going to go a lot into what CRIC did, their proposals. There were about 97 of them, plus other reforms. Yeah. So we are in a good place, largely, in the tightness of things. The two parties just have to work to bring about the reforms we need to strengthen the democratic system, to deal with the vigilante violence, to strengthen the police, and bring really strong state bureaucracies that can deliver the services we require.
Dr. Akwete,
we've got to take the two of them.
We've got 1 minute with you. The peace pact that was signed, and the basis was eradicating electoral violence in Ghana's democracy. 5 people have died, 17 injured. Have we failed?
We haven't failed at all. You're talking about 17+ million electorate, registered voters. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but it only reflects the weakness that political leadership. You read the title, but you left the role of political leadership. So the essence was that our political leaders will seize the bull by the horns and move it in the direction that will strengthen our democracy and stop this vigilante violence. Whether it's police, those who committed the offense ought to be arrested, investigated, prosecuted, and punished. The criminal justice system is sort of covered, it's insulated from political violence and political offenses, but all of which are criminal. So unfortunate and sad as these are, will the culprits be brought to book? It will be a failure if the police do not pursue this matter and bring the culprits to book. So it's not the idea. The Peace Pact actually is the instrument that has helped us strengthen the electoral process and cultivate this idea. We know more about the Electoral Commission, its rules and regulations. The Peace Pact gave you pink sheets because people could go to court, cleanse the register before 2016. They gave us the 2016 elections because they complied largely. What they haven't done, but is also in the Peace Pact, is that they would work together to change the conditions or remove the conditions that is leading to this violence, resurgent violence in our democracy. They don't go together. The more democracy you have, one will assume that the stronger the rule of law and the less violence. In that case, it looks like violence is competing with what peace we have. And so the Peace Pact is extremely important. And we should hold on to it, use it to steer our leaders to court. And not any other way.
We thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for all the analysis, helping us with this big issue of governance, violence, and where we are today. He's the Executive Director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, there, helping us with this conversation, and it's been absolutely fruitful. We hope that we are all learning from the processes and the conversations that we're bringing to you, Ben.
And, well, what can we say? Our democracy is going through teething stages still, especially 28 years down the line in the Fourth Republic. Others have practiced this for centuries, and even they still grapple with a few things here and there. But in our setting, maybe we may not have the benefit of time, because it said that you don't reinvent the wheel. So some wrong things you learn from the experiences or experiments of other nations for us to build upon. As we leave, my biggest worry is the outbreak of violence in certain areas, or at least people pouring out on the streets and reacting in certain ways that we wouldn't want to see. Let's just stay calm. Let's follow the legal processes, and let's put Mother Ghana first. That's what I would say.
And that's our show for today. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We've got plenty of news to share with you. The next major bulletin will be at 10, Joy News Desk. But for now, we thank you for watching our show. Enjoy the rest of the day and have a good weekend. We'll see you back on Monday, 6 a.m.